I am Brad Keelor. He is John Wolosick. Next on Director's Cut, find out why he was drilling into basement walls in Mississippi. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I am the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every week, I sit down with an unsuspecting Geo-Institute member who tells us stories about their life. Maybe they are personal stories, maybe they are professional stories. One thing I can guarantee is that all of them are fun. If you do not know anything about the Geo-Institute, it is time that you learned. We are a technical society housed within the American Society of Civil Engineers. We have about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers or geologists. We are very happy this week to be joined from Alpharetta, Georgia, in Keller, North America, where he is a senior advisor, John Wolosick. John, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you, Brad. Fun to be here.
We are going to have some fun. There are 10 questions, just as there are with everyone else. 2 of them are the same as every week. And the first one that we ask everybody to answer is to describe your job in 45 seconds.
Well, as senior advisor, this is my 25th year with Keller, so I've had a lot of different titles, but what I do is I'm involved in proposals for what we call special projects. They're usually complex projects revolving around typically micropiles, earth retention, landslide repair, and all types of grouting. And any problematic projects that we come up with where my expertise can help, I try to chime in.
So does special projects at Keller mean nobody else knows how to do it? So here you go.
No, it usually means complex,
Okay.
Like it's not a small residential project or a run-of-the-mill job where we do it every week or something. It's something that's got some kind of special twist to it, like 3 or 4 or 5 different techniques, things like that, or sometimes it's just high dollar volume stuff, but bigger jobs sometimes, but not necessarily.
Excellent. So when I think of John Wolosick, beyond the work stuff, I think baseball and I think cars, and we're going to get to both of those things in the course of this conversation. The first one is cars. When was the last time you got a speeding ticket?
Well, believe it or not, even though I own some really, really fast cars, it's been over 30 years. And I've never gotten a ticket in one of my specialty cars, ever. Knock on wood. I know it's going to happen.
I really
now.
hope I haven't cursed you that you're going to go to 7-Eleven this afternoon for a lotto ticket. So what do you think your favorite car is to drive? This is your bonus question for that one. You got to pick one.
I tell you, it's really hard, but probably my favorite is my 1959 Speedster convertible D. It's a black Porsche convertible that I've owned since 2011. It's just a great car, and I like convertibles.
It's hard to fight any of that. We will ask some work questions here as well, and the first one is a more recent one. We do a lot of nostalgia, a lot of thinking back on Director's Cut, but this one will deal with the now. You've been in semi-retirement here for a few years. What lesson have you learned in this semi-retirement that you would pass on to your younger colleagues?
Well, I would have to say that I'm not the originator of this thought, and but I've always agreed with the philosophy. It comes from Dr. Jean-Louis Briot from Texas A&M, and that is service to the industry. Either ASCE, GI, Deep Foundations Institute, get on a committee, and what you find is that whatever you give, you get back 5 or 10 times more in business, in personal relationships, in interesting locations to travel, et cetera. But, I was the president of the Deep Foundations Institute. Uh, I've been on the ASCE Earth Retaining Structures Committee for, even though I'm semi-retired now, for 30 years, and various committees on the ADSC and DFI. Whatever it seems like I've done that I contribute, I felt like I was volunteering and contributing. I got back so much more. People called me, they asked me questions. I got involved in projects. We made profit. you know, I just give, and the more you give, the more you get. It's unbelievable.
Last year at Geo-Congress in Minneapolis, Jean-Louis gave some remarks, and the theme of his little mini talk, because it was only about 10 minutes long, was about ASCE being your professional family. And I think it really fits in with that. And that is a great message to pass on. If you are looking for a way to get involved, this will be my little pitch. We will find a way for you to get involved. We have all kinds of opportunities up at geoinstitute.org, whether it's reviewing papers, whether it's joining a technical committee, whether it's getting involved with your local group. You need to find out how we can help you out with that. So take John's words to heart and join up. We can always use more volunteers. So another professional question here. I mentioned at the top that you're in Georgia. You've spent your entire professional life in the Atlanta area. For you, what's the biggest change in the geotech community in that region that you've seen over that time?
Well, I wish I had something really good to say, but unfortunately, in the 41 or whatever years I've been practicing here in Atlanta, it just seems like price of the geotechnical work has gotten to be something that's unfortunately the decider in many projects that are awarded, and that's even illegal, in many locales. And so you're not supposed to be able to award a professional services contract based on price, but people do it anyway. And unfortunately, that low price mentality has led to a sort of I would call it a commoditization of geotech services. And so it's not good. It's not good. You shouldn't have to bid professional services and then skimp at what you really need to do on a project to get it right, just to get your price down. So unfortunately, that's much more prevalent now. And especially here in Atlanta, there are over 100 geotechnical consulting firms in Atlanta. And so you can imagine what that does with that kind of competition. So it's tough.
I was hoping you would use that C word in your answer, because it will lead inevitably to a bonus question. How do you think we start to move away from the commoditization? What can the industry do? What can maybe the professional community do to start to pull away from that?
I think that owners and general contractors and developers and people like that have to understand the value offered by geotechnical engineering. They see it as a necessary evil or something. And I've told people for 40 years that every dollar you spend doing borings and having geotechnical analysis done, you're going to save $3 to $5 on your project. But they don't understand that. I see projects that are 40 acres that have 10 borings on them, and the geotechs will say, well, we'll call it a preliminary investigation, but then nobody ever pays them to go back. It's just a shame. But it has to be that we have to get the word out that the service that we offer is valuable and that it's actually going to save you money. And the way I know that better than anybody, not necessarily anybody else, but as well as anybody could, is my company does a lot of repair work. We do repair work on faulty construction or bad designs or whatever. And I can tell you right now, you're going to pay us 3 times as much to go fix it as opposed to having done it right the first time. And so I'm in a particularly insightful position to make that statement, and I see it almost every day. I mean, I had a call this morning, same thing, poor compaction somewhere, something's settling, something's moving, and it's just it's a shame. It's a real shame, but we need somehow to get the message out that we offer a valuable service.
I'm always a big fan of printing novelty T-shirts as a way to do that, and so maybe we make ones that say it's the ROI, stupid, or hire a geotech, save a buck, or something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
So we do have a few nostalgia questions mixed in here, and the first one that we're going to get to is, what food did you hate as a kid that you grew to at least tolerate? Maybe love, but at least tolerate as an adult?
Well, this is a funny one because my mother pointed it out to me many times, but when I was a kid, I couldn't stand tomatoes or bacon. Okay. I didn't like bacon. I thought it tasted terrible. So when I went to college, all of a sudden I tried it, and hey, this isn't so bad. And I was at a restaurant with my mother and my family, and I ordered a BLT, and she looked at me like I was crazy. She was like, "What did you just order?" I said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I like tomatoes now." And she goes, "And bacon? What about bacon?" "Oh yeah, I like bacon. I love bacon now." But those were the things I did not like.
So as a kid, it just would have been an L for you. The lettuce and nothing else.
Yeah, little mayo.
So, but it doesn't sound like it was born from desperation, though. You just decided to try it.
Yeah, one of my roommates was a cook at a small restaurant, and he was a really great cook. And one day he made these BLTs, and they're all munching. I was going to get some Cheerios or something, and until I tried it, I was like, "Hey, this is pretty good." So I love tomatoes and bacon now. So
next Geo-Congress, now we're going to have a BLT buffet. That's you've inspired me. So the other question that we ask everybody that appears on the show, and you touched on your involvement in ASCE and GI earlier, but now you get to give the backstory to it. How did you first get involved in ASCE and GI?
So I actually joined the ASCE when I was in college. I went to the University of Illinois, and ASCE was a pretty big organization at Illinois, and so I got involved there, and I enjoyed it. And then when I went to work in Atlanta in 1979, we had a local organization of ASCE that's now the Georgia GI. And we had meetings, 7 or 8 times a year, and they had great speakers. They'd have George Sowers, they'd have guys from the Corps of Engineers, City of Atlanta, Savannah, all kinds of people. So that was a big event where you got to meet a lot of people and hear some good case histories and stuff. So I always attended those. And then a friend of mine, Mike Turner, was on the committee, and he actually got me on the committee after I went from consulting to contracting because he wanted more contractors on the board. And then eventually I became the chair. So it's just been since day one in college, and it's been a great thing for my career. Absolutely.
And returned to you many times, as you said earlier.
Many times, yeah.
So I mentioned early on that I think of cars and baseball when I think of John Wolosick, and we have to ask a baseball question at this point. I know you've had a lot of different roles, including manager and owner, and spent a lot of time on the field itself. What is the most interesting thing that's happened on a baseball field while you were on the field?
So, my thing about baseball is, and boy, I've been on the field a lot in over 20 years. There were some cool things that my son did through the years that I think about, but it always boils down to defensive plays. And in 2015, I was in Scottsdale, Arizona with my team in the World Series, Men's Adult Baseball League, 18 years plus. And we were playing a team from Paso Robles, California called the Punishers. and they were huge. Their biggest guy, or excuse me, my biggest guy was smaller than their littlest guy. Okay, and they called us a team of second basemen, even though we weren't that small. But these guys were huge. I mean, they were all like 6'6", you know.
When you have a
And
name like the Punishers, I
the
feel like you
Punishers.
better be big.
Yeah. And they were good, but we had beaten them earlier in the week in pool play, and so they'd come back around, and we were in the championship game, and it was a back and forth game. It was a really good game, and we were the home team. Bottom of the ninth, we were down by 1 run. It was 7-6, and so the inning started off with a couple of base hits for our guys, and then a walk. We had the bases loaded, nobody out. I'm like, we're going to win this thing. It's the bottom of the ninth. I'm down by 1 run. We're going to win. I had a really good batter up. In fact, he works for Keller now. And Ted Pratt. And I could always count on him for a sacrifice fly. So he drills one to right center, like to the warning track. And so the guys tag up, guy from third scores, going to be that's a tie game. But we sent the runner from second because that guy was at the wall. And even though he was our catcher, he wasn't slow. And I watch him running over. All of a sudden, the ball comes in. That center fielder caught the ball and throws a 300-foot laser beam right here to the third baseman, and he tags the guy out. Double play. So we got 2 outs now. I got a runner on first. I couldn't believe it. Tie game. So the next guy struck out. We went into extra innings. We played 3 more innings. I ran totally out of pitching. And they scored a bunch of runs in the 12th and beat us. So we lost the World Series on a fantastic defensive play.
But in heartbreaking fashion.
Oh, it was tough. It was tough.
So another bonus question here. We have to ask this one. This will be a major league one here. And your love of defense. Who are your top 3 defensive right fielders of all time?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. Oh, so having grown up in Illinois, I was a big Andre Dawson fan. I was, loving the Cubs. And then, of course, Sammy Sosa, with the Cubs as well, both right fielders. And, another right fielder. The thing I loved about right field, and I always have, is that you put the guy you have with an arm. So, I'm going to have to stick with the Cubs and go with Jason Hayward. So I'm sorry, it's boring, but my son actually worked with him before he was a major leaguer. Worked for his coach. So
I'll go K-Line.
A
little before my time, but still my dad's favorite. Clemente. Again, before my time, but great. And I'm going to go Ichiro. I was a big Ichiro fan.
Yeah, I like those choices too. Sorry, I was blinded by the Cubs, but those are great choices.
And by the offense, I think too.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Who I loved, speaking of Georgia guys, is Nick Marchakis. So when he was in
Baltimore, good
we
guy.
were big Marchakis fans.
So he played at East Cobb baseball, and then he went to Kell High School, which was about 3 blocks from my house. And so I know a lot of people who knew Nick, know Nick still. He retired this year, but just a really great guy, great hitter too, and a good person.
We still have a Marchakis poster up in the basement in our house.
Gotcha. Yeah, he was a big Oriole for years and years. Couldn't believe they got rid of him.
So we have a few more questions to go, a couple of serious ones and a super fun one. Well, I guess that depends on your opinion. I'm giving mine in this case. You worked on several mass transit projects, especially earlier in your career. What complicating factors exist with transit that you don't see with other tunneling projects?
Obviously with transit, you have to. I've done a lot of tunnels that are in the mountains, in rural areas. But with transit, you're in the city, and it's a super complicating factor from installing inclinometers, running pump tests, getting materials in and out of the city, etc. Tunnels are always interesting because there's so much change in the ground as you tunnel. It's a ribbon, right? And so your subsurface conditions change frequently. And here in Atlanta, I did a project many years ago. I was a geologic mapper on one called it was called CN430. It was the Pershing Point Tunnel. And we actually were in hard rock, but there was a fault that went through, and they had to tunnel through soft ground in the middle of it. And it was a disaster. They had cave-ins. It didn't come to all the way to this roof. But so, I just, in tunnels, you deal with changing subsurface conditions every time you advance. But in a city, the logistics just go up by a factor of, 20, having to deal with people, traffic, safety, everything like that.
That's a great answer. And now I feel like this next question is, especially after hearing a little preview of your answers, the pièce de résistance of this interview here on Director's Cut this week. What mistake have you made in your career that you still think about regularly?
So, I told you before, I've heard other people get asked this question. They're like, well, yeah, I can't think of a mistake, When you ask
those people are liars, though.
Yeah, you asked me that question, it was like, oh my God, this mistake, that mistake, this mistake, I can categorize them, technical mistakes, mistakes with writing reports, hiring mistakes, business decision mistakes, etc. But the one that kind of stands out to me in the late 90s, we were doing a 74-foot high soil nail wall at the Natchez Bluff in Natchez, Mississippi, and the bluff had failed right up in the street called Clifton Avenue, had gone all the way down the hill. It had dropped like 50 feet. And so these houses were on the National Register of Historic Places. They were fantastic. In particular, there was one called the Learned Mansion. And the failure had gone right up to the steps of this house. And the lady who owned it, Maggie Berkeley, couldn't even get homeowners insurance. So we were nervous that we wanted the wall to be really stiff and hold those houses back. So we decided to put a tieback anchor through the soil nailing, okay, at the very top, and then to stress that against the shotcrete. So I was driving in my car, the construction was underway, and the project manager, Steve Buckner, calls me, and I go, hello? He goes, Maggie Berkeley's house has a basement. And I said, oh no. So obviously he determined that because he had drilled the tieback anchor into the basement wall. We had no idea. None of the other houses had basements there, this big mansion. So I was like, he goes, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, did you drill through the wall? He goes, no, we stopped. I said, well, just put the tieback on a steeper angle. We were back about 15, 20 feet from the basement wall. And that way you drill under the footing. And so not thinking what we were doing there, we did that all the way along. And so putting that tieback anchor on a steeper angle put a downward component of load when we stressed the anchor on the entire wall, but we didn't think about that. And especially because we were in a soil called loess, which doesn't really bond well to the shotcrete. So when we got down about 25 feet, and we dug down for the next lift, all of those anchors pushing down on the wall made the whole wall drop like 5 feet. And that was another call. That one was a late call that had me get in a car and go to the airport, and along with the president of Hayward Baker, unfortunately. But we were able to fortunately jack the wall back up, and within a week we were going again. But that was a big mistake, not considering the fact that I was, with that decision, putting so much more downward force on that wall that it wouldn't be able to support. So
I had one really big question about this story. When you told it earlier, you mentioned that she was a psychic or a clairvoyant.
Yeah. So
why did she? But my question before you go into that, why did she not know this was going to happen and come out and alert you guys?
Yeah, I don't know, but she was famous. I didn't believe in psychics, but she was used by the New Orleans Police Department to find missing persons. The Natchez police would come over and ask her questions. She'd tell them where to look for things. So I never believed that, but she had Steve Buckner and I over for lunch one day, and she gave us some sandwiches, and we were sitting down in her living room, and I was looking around at all this artwork and everything, and she came in, and I thought to myself, boy, she's a really nice looking older lady. And she looked at me and she said, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. So I was going like, eat your sandwich, eat your sandwich. Don't think of anything you don't want her to know.
And in Natchez, the time you spent there, did you have any musician encounters? I know that part of the country is famous. Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, you name it.
There was a lot of live music in the bar. Natchez is a party town. It's like a mini New Orleans, but nobody famous that I can think of. Just a lot of live music and a lot of different establishments. It's a fun town.
And interesting soil conditions, it sounds like, too.
Very.
So our final question today. The Olympics are coming up, it seems, whether the Japanese government wants them to or not. It looks like they're going to happen. What Olympic sport do you think would improve the most with like cyborg or robotic influence? I mean, there are ones that would not get any better at all. Like, let's say if you gave people cannons for arms to do the shot put, it wouldn't be entertaining because everybody would have the same ability. Shot put was your answer?
That was my answer.
But what's your logic? Why would it be better?
My logic is we had a Hayward Baker meeting years ago where everybody was given a bunch of plywood and 2x4s, and you had to make a trebuchet to throw oranges. Okay, it was in Florida, and so whoever threw the orange the furthest, so we made one here in Atlanta. It threw the orange like 30 feet. The guys from New York rigged up this spring deal. It was unbelievable that threw an orange like 150 feet. So I don't know. I was going to say shot put.
But that's good. I mean, so I want to know what possessed, the HR people or whoever came up with this event to make you guys utilize medieval war technology to do this.
It was just, we'd had a thing another time where we built go-karts, it was team play, teamwork. And so we built boats, we did all kinds of stuff, but it was a trebuchet, and it was pretty interesting till the New Jersey guys showed up with that, cannon launcher they had, and they won by like 3 times longer than the closest one.
What did you get for winning? Or what did they get for winning?
I think it was a plaque, something like that. I think I'm trying to remember if Tanner Blackburn was behind that design. Somebody really smart was behind it, but ours went like 30 feet.
But shot put, I mean, I guess so, right? I would think javelin would be pretty good.
Yeah, I thought of javelin too. Yeah,
so you'd have guys throwing it out of the stadium. And then at the same time, I always thought like basketball, maybe not so good because you still need the accuracy.
Yeah.
Like no matter what kind of ability you have, you'd still have to shoot accurately.
Well, you can have, laser guided, or something.
Oh, that would be pretty good too. So for all of you viewers out there, as you watch the Olympics this summer, kind of put that in the back of your mind and send us your best guess for what sport would improve the most with not supernatural, that's a whole different deal, with robotic capabilities. John, you made it through. You gave great answers to all these and really gave us a window into a lot of different aspects of your career, which is fantastic. That's what we're here for. If you liked what you saw today, and I hope you did, click on the subscribe button, click get notifications. We will let you know every single freaking time we post a video to the YouTube channel, which is really frequently. So John, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it very much.
And I had a good time, and we will see everybody next week.